Okay, so welcome everyone on the first meeting for the Pro Migration Working Group. I will share my screen and show you the agenda for today's meeting. Can you see my screen? Okay. So at the beginning, we'll present the goal of this working group. It will be presented by me. Next, Suleiman Akbas present current status of the migration to Pro. Next point is some organizational topics, so we need to elect leaders. And the final point, it will be some open slot for questions and answers. And today, meeting notes will be written by Christian Cieślik. Christian, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Cool. So let's start with the definition of the goal for that working group. So we want to migrate to the new CI tool, namely Pro, to enable external contributors to gain visibility. And we also want to have a CI solution which serves our needs, which scales well, and the expected results are having a running solution on the Google Kubernetes engine, and all components, all Kyma components are migrated to new CI. Some of us know that previous approach does not scale well, and we want to somehow resolve that problems. How we want to measure if we succeed? So we have a deadline defined for this working group that migration needs to be done by the end of this year, and we need to get positive feedback from Kyma developers. And there's also defined assessment frequency monthly. So it means that after every month we should check if we are on track and what is the attitude to the Pro. And next point here is the exit criteria. So in what situation this group should stop working. So first, it will be if the Pro does not cover all our needs. And the second, if the group do not give enough support for achieving the goals presented just before. Does anyone want to add something to this point, to the goal for this working group?
Just maybe to clarify, so when we say that all components migrated to new CI, of course, we don't assume that it's really one-to-one migration, but we, I guess, take into account that we should also take this opportunity that all of us are focused and we should already improve the things. Not just copy the pipeline, but maybe improve the pipeline as well, right? I give you an example, which I'm really interested with, is the topic of selective testing. So, for example, that we already work on a pipeline where it's enabled by default. So when you have a PR for kubeless, then you test only run only kubeless tests. When you have something for console, you run only console. And then we have nightly build that runs everything and then reverts if it's failing because of some commits. And we don't have it, and I was thinking if we can already address it as well.
Okay, so do we have such a list of some additional requirements which we should consider during the implementation of the migration?
So I don't know such a list. That's one thing that I would like to address, but not sure if. I just wanted to clarify if that's obvious for you that we want to do those improvements already, or
I think
we should list them.
But such improvement which you're talking about involves in this process cooperation with the direct with the teams who implement those tests, because this group which we are together, we are unable to do such change, I think, because it's based on the components itself.
I guess the question was more general. Is that right, Łukasz? The question was
Yeah,
if
so
we
this
plan
thing
to do
is just,
modifications,
yeah, exactly.
not
So I
to
just made an
copy
example.
one-on-one.
I think that it would be the common
Did I
sense.
lost you?
Sorry?
No, we
Or
can
did
hear you.
we lost Łukasz?
No.
No, I hear Łukasz. Okay, so maybe some.
Oh, so it was my problem. Okay.
I think that we should use common sense here. So I would like to have some first iteration as soon as possible. Of course, yeah, it depends on the effort. Yeah, so if these changes, Łukasz, for example, said will cost us 2 months of waiting, refactoring, or whatever, I would skip that. Yeah, so if it is straightforward in implementation in Pro, we should do that. Yeah, so so that's for me the common sense. Yeah, we should think. So we should not move blindly all these jobs we have right now, but think about the goal. But for me, the most important is to have it relatively quickly. Yeah, so if it adds 1 month waiting, I would give up it.
Okay, so if I may suggest something, so maybe to enable us to start with working, we should start immediately. We know what to do, for example, with some basic steps. And on the other hand, we should think about the list of suggestions which we may include. For example, this is what Łukasz said. We have also the suggestion that we should maybe implement direct testing on GKE cluster together with Minikube, yes. But this is some kind of improvement which we know we can do. So this is 2 points, for example, right now, yeah.
So I have a question: when we should gather all that ideas in the Kyma community repository?
Yeah, maybe, and we should do this as soon as possible. Yes. For example, we have 1 week deadline for people to give us any suggestions.
Okay, so what the best solution is to basically define tickets and label them as the working group label, and then we will prioritize.
We can do the triage during next meeting or
because there's also this important topic that Suleiman mentioned when he first came up with this idea of the working group, that for example, we should also already with this group, because again we're focused, maybe choose already some basic setup that we'll have for using bots and the plugins that Prow has, and maybe some basic ones we should also enable them, like the OK2 test, which we don't have. So and it's kind of must have, right, I guess, because we don't want to have a current situation we have with the CI, right? So that's something that is not really migration, but it's really improvement, right?
Yeah, but
Yes.
I agree with you, Łukasz, that we should just collect tickets and then set the priorities during some kind of planning. Next, I do not know. We should do the planning and prioritize them. Yeah, so we should have some basic topics like really run tests for components for pull requests, deployment on GKE, and then we can add additional tasks like bots, whatever, and this will be, then we will set priorities accordingly.
And when we want to have this planning on the next working group meeting?
I would maybe set up separate or reuse the time slot for the planning. So maybe I think that we will just we want to have tickets prepared already before the plan, so to not create them during the planning, and then we can have just a quick run with setting priorities. So what is the most important thing we will work next week, next 2 weeks? Yeah.
I also some inputs for that. Maybe we can just move to my parts right now, so that I would present it, and then maybe we can discuss more.
Okay, so I'm stop sharing my screen.
All right,
And
let me share my screen. All right, can you see it now?
Yes. Yes.
Some colleagues and I here try to came up with some tasks. First of all, sorry for my voice. I'm a bit sick. It's on the Google Docs, so I will share the link on the chat, and then I can share it on the Slack channel as well. So basically, we came up with some tasks from infrastructure part to documentation and security. So this might be an input for us to create the issues. I even started creating some issues here on the test infra repo. You can also review them, and then maybe we can using them. We can even prioritize and decide what to work on. So maybe I can talk from here, from the roadmap. Yeah, we came up with this roadmap. Actually, it was only for me because I was the only one working on this before, so we can definitely improve it and revisit it right now. Can you see it well, by the way?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So what I have done so far, first I investigated some of the plugins, and I came up with these investigation results. Here is a pull request. You can take a look. I even chose some of them for the first installation. So maybe you can directly review them from this PR and give me some feedback. Please include this one and, exclude this one, something like that. And then I defined the first set of configurations for those plugins. But this definitely needs more like extensive investigation later on. And I have installed a Prow cluster on Google Kubernetes engine. We have one here with 3 nodes and 12 virtual CPUs, so it's pretty enough for us at the moment. And if you need to do anything, just let me know. I can share the kubeconfig with you as well. And I think we can even ask for one more cluster, maybe for testing purposes. And I integrated my Prow setup there with the Kyma bot we have on GitHub. And also I set test infra repo and also one repo here from Kyma incubator for this Prow. So it's already started listening. And even the students, Atakan and Omar here, they started to work with Prow. They wrote a script. It's still ongoing. So maybe in the next weeks, they can even share some feedback with us, how Prow is behaving and if it solves their problems. And I have created an installation script. It's also in one of the PRs here. You can just use it to quickly set up a Prow installation on Google Kubernetes engine. There is one thing here which should be discussed again in this group, the usage of starter YAML. I'm using it at the moment, but last week I read one of the comments from Kubernetes contributors saying that we shouldn't be using the starter YAML, it's just for testing purposes. Instead, we should reuse the deployment files for each these Prow components, and also we need to customize them for our needs. So that's another topic maybe we need to discuss later on. And I came up with a basic build pack. You can also find it in one of the PRs here in this repo. It has Golang tooling and also Node.js tooling. So almost everything that we need for building our components, Kyma components. And also one controversial thing here is the usage of Docker in Docker. Before we were thinking we could use something else like this IMG. It's not using Docker daemon to build Docker images, but the problem is all the alternatives, they do not work on containers. So that's why it looks like the only option is to use Docker in Docker. But maybe we can discuss about it later as well, if you have any other idea. And what I'm doing at the moment, I'm trying to come up with one basic build job. I actually started implementing something very basic, like cloning the repo and running make CI for the components. I took one of the components, Jenkins file for this API controller, and I converted it into a make file. So that this is actually what I have in my mind, like calling make CI from the build job for each component that needs to be built. But of course, that's something we can discuss here as well. So I will share the link to these documents, and maybe we can you can review, and you can create some GitHub issues out of this. Yeah. That's it from me. I will just share this on the chat as well.
Can I have a question?
Of course.
So the current state is that you are able to build API controller, yes, from.
Not really. I'm testing it.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. But it should be possible. I tried only building the Docker image, and it was possible for some other components. So I don't see any problem
but
for this
this
one as well.
Docker problem is to build the components or to run Kyma in the Minikube.
No. It's just to build the Docker images.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Because for Prow, we can only specify a pod spec for it to run the job. And inside this pod spec, of course, we need to build some images for the components as well, just like we are doing with Jenkins. Actually, it's also using Docker Insights.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think this is just the first task we need to create, yeah? So how to solve the problem of building images, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Suleiman, can you change the rights for this doc? Because I had to explicitly request permissions.
Oh, okay, of course. How about now? I shared another link. Hope it works.
Yeah, now it works.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
Do you have more questions to Suleiman?
Basically, just curious why you choose to have a prerequisite for the roadmap to now focus on choosing the plugins. Why you think it's more important than the other things, looking on your roadmap?
It was just for the installation, actually. We need to configure some plugins for the first installation. At least, for example, Trigger plugin is triggering the jobs. So it's a must-have. That's why I actually added it. And I think, for example, OK to test is also a must. But of course, we can
revisit it, yeah? So it is
of
not
course,
just
of course, yeah.
Have it done final decision right now, yeah?
Yeah,
So,
that's why I'm
okay.
keeping them all in the pull requests now, so that you can, review them, and then I can update. Yeah.
Yeah, so my understanding is that we enable what we need, and if we need to add something, we will do that later. Yeah, so or remove something if it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to focus more on having this full full chain, yeah. So from pull request to green tests, something like that, yeah. So that we are able to enable it for our repository. And then we can revisit plugins, and if we need some bots, as Łukasz said, we can add it also in parallel.
So for that, for example, there are some other things we need to think about. For example, one thing is secret management. You know, we have secrets for GitHub and for GCR at the moment, and we need to find a way to use them, you know, from Prow. This is, for example, one topic that we need to tackle right now. And another thing is threat modeling. I don't know what we who should do that or how we should do that, but I think we should, yeah, somehow come up with a threat modeling because, yeah, from development sides, there might be things that we are not aware of that needs to be addressed.
Okay, any more questions to Suleiman? If now, can we go to the next topic in our agenda?
Sure.
Okay. So let me share my screen. Give me a second. So next topic in our agenda is leader selection. So let's have a brief look at the Kyma project community repository when we have defined this role, group leaders. So as you can read here, working group must nominate at least 2 group leaders, and group leaders make sure that the group topics are relevant to the Kyma. They facilitate the group meetings, maintain, communicate the meeting minutes. Group leaders also record tasks identified by the group. They are also responsible for smooth communication with other 6 working groups and the Kyma Council. So do we have any volunteers to be such group leader? Don't be shy.
Well, I could be a volunteer. Suleiman.
I can try to.
Okay, so great. We have 2 group leaders. Anyone else? Or 2 will be enough?
3.
What?
3 is better number because from we had the situation in the internal SIG that 2 leaders one was sick, one was on vacation, and third one.
Okay, so I can be 3rd group leader if you don't mind.
Great.
Awesome.
Okay, so last point in our agenda are, let's say, open topics. Do we have any more questions? Do we know what we need to do right now?
I would like to have a clear action item that we prepare the tasks where we prepare. So because I've seen that Suleiman created them in the test infra repository. We talked about the community repository, so to clear it, to make it clear what to do for before the next meeting and what we can and how to start right now, yeah, because we will have maybe planning, but maybe we should select topics we can start right now. We have a couple of people that can do the work before next meeting, yeah.
I think this repository is this testing for repository is rather good place to start, yes, with the issues.
Mm-hmm. Then we probably need to create some issues we want to work on in this group, and quickly align today, tomorrow, that it's not against our plan. Yeah. So, so let's have time maybe today to to create a couple of issues that we want to start working this week.
Okay, but
Not this week, no, next week, yeah.
Do we need to discuss those issues
In the
before
meeting?
we
No.
create them? No.
No. Let's create them and have maybe some I don't know on the Slack communication. Yeah, just some time to discuss if there are any objections or different ideas. So to think somehow before next meeting. So I would like to start work on Monday. Yeah. To not wait to another meeting.
So till Monday, we should have created all the issues we know right now. Yes.
Yeah, and the highest priority issues. Yeah, so we want to tackle us first. Yeah.
Okay. Also, please remember that we have a label for the whole working group, so you can find it in the working group here, a working group pro in the README file, probably somewhere here. So please use it, and later I will also communicate what is the correct label on the Slack channel.
But just a question, shouldn't we actually use this opportunity that we're all here and at least instead of on Slack, but here on the meeting, agree on those, the most important? Like I get from the explanation that actually security topic is knowing the threat modeling and how complex it is. I think we should, that's one of the critical topics, right? And the authorization that was mentioned by Suleiman. So I see them as must, and then basic setup as must, but then shouldn't we just at least agree on those musts that for me are musts, but for you might not be? Or do you really want to do this on Slack?
We can use that. I don't know how much time do we have?
We have 30 minutes, right? It's 1 hour.
Yes, half an hour.
Or is it have an input now from Suleiman, right? That he mentioned the security, but maybe...
Okay, so basically I did some investigation earlier on with Pro, and I focus mainly on managing the secrets. And Pro itself offers a mechanism that it can mount you into the running job pods, secrets from Kubernetes, yes, which is the Pro running on. So if we are fine with putting our GitHub secret or GCR secret into this cluster, then the Pro will do the job to provide those secrets into the job that runs the pipeline.
And from the other end, using that approach, I was able to provision Google Kubernetes cluster. So joint story would work.
Yes.
Well, if you put some inside the Kubernetes secret, then that would be easily decoded. But I don't know if that's okay.
Yeah, but it will be easily decoded by people who have access to that cluster.
Yes, exactly.
So
Pro cluster.
So the Pro cluster, yeah. So basically, we need to identify the right permissions and who could have access to such cluster. Because I don't think if anyone from outside the world would have kubeconfig to our cluster, yes?
And I think it's the other point, authorization.
Yeah, different point, but the authorization from the Pro perspective is not needed when you are talking about the dashboard, yes? Because the dashboard in Pro shows only the summary of running jobs and shows the progress and the status.
Sure.
And
it can be public.
It can be public, and it should be public, I think, if we want to adapt the community.
Exactly.
On the other hand, when you want to manage the Pro, the managing of the Pro is basically based on the configuring the cluster. So you use kubectl to do this. Yes, there is nothing else to right now.
Sure.
So if we put Pro into GKEs, then you have this gcloud comment, which then you can log in and then do the job. So we base our permissions in the Google accounts. Because at least this is what I've managed to figure out during my short investigation of Pro. Yes, if you want to do something, some administrative job with Pro, then you have to have permissions to your account in Google assigned.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, there is one plugin. Maybe we can enable it as well. I think it was called Config Uploader, something like that. So it will listen one of the repositories for config changes, and whenever a change to the config YAML file is merged, then it will automatically pick up. So
yeah,
that's maybe we can add as well.
Yeah, if we may think about it, because it would be easier for us to let's say have control over the changes in the configuration. Yes, because you can, let's say, deliver the configuration to Pro by basically running kubectl, but I think we shouldn't do this directly.
Yes, and this way the config YAML file will be versions.
Yes.
But secret we need to apply manually, I understand.
Yes. Yes. No, maybe we can have this in our internal repository. It's not publicly available in some vault. And then when we have the script that provisions our Pro, it can reach the vault, take the secret, and apply to the cluster. So the manual work would only be to run this script, then the script should do the rest.
So that can be an action item. Actually, maybe we can edit the document I sent to you. Maybe we can add some items to the beginning, like the items that we can create an issue later on. Like maybe hard requirements that's we decided.
Okay, so we have first task to prepare Pro provisioning script that takes some secrets from Vault and apply them as secrets in the Kubernetes in the prod. Yeah.
If we're saying Vault, what do you mean? I mean, which Vault?
That's a good question. But our internal vault, I think.
Do we want to make such restriction? I mean,
You won't be able to
our
access
vault, maybe just use some Google service, like Google KMS.
Or, yeah.
Something.
The question is, maybe is it required because we
Tomasz
can create service accounts
has-
directly in the when we provision it and
yeah, but this is the one service account we are talking about. For example, about the token for GitHub. Yes.
Okay.
It's rather where to store the secret if we, for example, somehow recreate the cluster with Pro and we delete the cluster and we have no secrets if we only put the manually there.
The natural place is maybe in the project we have in the Kyma project on GKE some vault from Google. Yeah.
Yeah, because in fact we need Google credentials to provision the cluster itself. So
yeah,
this is a good idea.
So it's the place.
So first action item, which I will note in our meeting notes, that will be prepare Pro provisioning script that takes secrets from Vault, which we are in the Google Cloud's Vault, and apply them on the Pro cluster. Do we agree on this?
Yes.
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 Okay. Okay, so anything else?
One thing is, after some time, Prow just kills the old pods, old job pods, and then the logs will be unreachable. Is it okay for now? Because otherwise we need to think about persisting them on the Google Cloud Storage.
I think for now this is okay because in the beginning at least we can monitor these jobs, yes. When we will be, let's say, further in the implementation, we may think of persistence the logs, but for now.
I think we do not need it as from the beginning.
Yes, because even if the test will fail, then we have this job pod to look into it, yes, for some time at least. So for now, it should be fine.
But what's the time for it? I mean, there's some kind of garbage collection in Pro that clean old jobs in after X hours, days.
I think it should be 1 day, but I'm not 100% sure.
And I'm not sure if this is not configurable. I think I've seen some parameters to configure this, but I may be wrong here.
Yeah, I think if we start using this different deployment YAML files, we can customize it as well. So would it be okay to use the starter YAML file for now, for you as well? Because at least it can pick up the changes and it can run the jobs. So I don't know what it's missing at the moment, but yeah, Kubernetes guys says we can only use it for testing.
I think we should start with this file because we don't know how to customize it. And we don't know what to expect. So we need a good starting point. And I think this is a good starting point.
What about the jobs we are going to prepare first? Yeah, so what to test? Pull requests, building components, deploying cluster, and deploying Kyma on the cluster. Do you have any preferences?
It depends on yeah, but maybe this depends on how much resources we have to.
Yeah,
yeah.
of course.
Because
I'm just the question is about what kind of job we want to have as a first iteration. Yeah, so we will deploy the cluster, but this cluster should do something. Yeah. So,
yeah, but what is the priority? What is the biggest problem with our current solution, and we need to address maybe this way.
Or maybe we should start with the beginning and just building the single component.
Yes, I was thinking about the same. It seems to be the less complicated one.
And also it's a requirement for example, integration job or anything else, I think. So building every component which is required by Kyma, it's a must-have for me, I think.
Okay.
But do we want to migrate scripts for building every component, or it will be just fine to build at least one or two components, maybe one Go component, and I don't know if we have some Node components, and then try to run Kyma integration?
We may, yeah, maybe this is the way, but for the adoption of our teams to use Pro, maybe we should provide them a pattern and one component that will be migrated, and then just give other teams possibility to migrate the components themselves.
I agree. We shouldn't do all this work that is known how to do that. We need to do this investigation and give guideline how to do that. Yeah. So one component or two components that maybe two components to have a parallel job or whatever. One maybe is not enough, but two components and the rest will follow the pattern. Yeah.
Yeah, one component or two components of each type, because we have some JS components, yes, JavaScript components, and Go components. So maybe with cooperations with some UI team, we should migrate also their component, and then we will have at least the answers for the questions which may occur.
It would be also nice if we could build a component that, for example, builds several Docker images. There are such several cases of those, which seems to be maybe more complicated. We don't have to go for the most complicated one, but at least find one that builds 2 Docker images, for example, to be sure that we can do it easily. Yeah, for the others.
Yes.
I agree.
And then we can focus on something different, like integration testing. Yes.
Okay, so we have next action item, yeah?
So the next action item, we start with 1-2 components to migrate to Pro. Anything else to add to this point?
So how we would want to run integration tests? So on Minikube, as we do that right now, or do we want to start already with GKE cluster to run the integration?
Maybe we should start both. One person can focus on the cluster, one person can focus on the Minikube part.
But Minikube part would be Docker in Docker scenario.
Yes.
Yeah, but with updates to next version of Minikube, that won't be possible anymore. So, is that worth investigating?
Maybe it's a good point that we should think about this Minikube part, what to do next. Maybe it's time to move this Docker in Docker to something more robust and something different. Because we agree that we need Minikube tests, yes?
Yeah, that's true.
Do we know any solution that will work?
The solution that will work is to not to run it in Docker, but on some, for example, virtual machine.
But can we do that with Pro?
I think so. Because Pro is just running some kind of job definition, yes? In this job definition, we may try to run Kyma on virtual machine.
Okay, then we spin up virtual machine, and then we
maybe not spin up, but
have a pool. Yeah?
Have a pool of virtual machines, and we just trigger the installation on this virtual machine. It may be painful and hard, but I think this is doable.
Can we add this as the third action item, maybe?
For me, it's harder than spinning a GKE cluster.
Yes, but yeah, I agree that we need also spin the GKE cluster, but we need also test on Minikube to be sure that it works, basically. Because this is our daily environment, yes?
Do we know when is this Minikube new version is coming?
Theoretically, it should be done already, this migration, because Minikube is telling us that this approach which we are using is deprecated from some time ago.
The local cube bootstrapper is removed from Minikube already in the newest version.
Okay, so it looks like we don't have any option. We have to think about getting rid of Docker in Docker.
Basically, yes.
So for sure, we need a separate ticket for that, and one person works on that.
Then we have two additional actions. So investigate how to do that Minikube testing using virtual machines. And second, how to do integration testing on a real cluster on GKE. That's right?
Also, should we add threat modeling as well for Pro?
Somebody's writing minutes, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, because I get because it's Adam's screen. That's why nothing is changing.
I'm not trying anything. So basically, I wrote the threat modeling, investigating on provisioning GK cluster for integration test, and investigate running integration test on virtual machine.
One question: what's the expected outcome? Sorry, from the threat modeling. I mean, what's the acceptance criteria kind of for this? So perhaps I didn't get it. Just to be sure I understand correctly.
So we need to go through the threat modeling with the security team, and the best case is if we end up with no critical action now tickets.
Okay, so it's kind of security review by the security team, yes? Audit, like something like this, yes?
Okay. But should it be done right now at the beginning or of work or at the end?
Probably we should have some iterations of that. So we should maybe have first iteration now when we begin, because if we have some fundamental problems that are not addressed, this is also one of the exit criteria then.
Yeah.
Okay.
It may happen that they say no.
But with the final solution, we should repeat it. Probably when we implement something with virtual machines pool, it adds some security issues probably. Yeah, so.
Yeah, because in terms of virtual machines, we are talking about storing the SSH keys, for example. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do we know if this security team is available right now? I mean, like next week, or they have scheduled like they will be in, I don't know, half a year? Do we have such information? If it's doable, yes, within a reasonable time.
We will ask.
Okay.
I do not know.
I think we don't know yet. Okay, so that's one thing we have to ensure that this is this can be done like in few maximum 3 weeks. Yes.
That's why it's good to have this task at the beginning.
Okay, so we have this on our list. Do we have anything more to discuss?
I think we have enough for starting.
So I have 5 action items right now.
Okay, so let's try to do tickets until Monday, and then have a review of these tickets on the Slack. Yeah.
Yes.
Can we also maybe add an action item as reviewing my PRs as well? Because I have a couple of PRs related to field spec, installation scripts, and some plugins.
Okay, so I will write review existing pull request in this code integration.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good.
Okay, so that's all, yes. So thank you for today's meetings. Next meeting will be organized by the leaders on the next Friday.
So you are also the leader.
Yeah. But maybe now I will not be organizing it. I hope. Okay, so thank you for today's meeting. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.